Order number 7, questions and statements.
There is a request for a statement by the member for Githunguri, the Honorable Gabriel Kago. Member is not one of those ones, so walk in, please.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I stand here pursuant to Standing Order 44-2C. I wish to request for a statement from the Chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Health regarding the public health measures announced by the government to reduce the risk of contracting coronavirus, that is COVID-19, particularly the requirement for mandatory wearing of masks for any person in any public setting to avoid unwillingly spreading the virus, and the type of mask recommended by the government. Honorable Speaker, with the reports that COVID-19 is being spread by infected persons who have no symptoms, it is clear that wearing a mask is crucial in protecting oneself from the virus that has infected over 1.7 million people worldwide and killed more than 100,000 in over 253 countries, whereas the territories with 208 people infected in Kenya and 9 killed so far. However, there have been concerns, particularly from the medical professionals, on use of the medical grade or N95 masks, which they say should be saved for the frontline health professionals as they are in short supply and are needed by first responders and health professionals. Honorable Speaker, they recommend that members of the public should wear a basic 2-ply cloth or fabric mask, which have been recommended by the Center for Disease Control, CDC, and should be made in such a manner that it is as effective as N95 mask in protecting oneself against the virus. Honorable Speaker, the 3-ply N95 masks are made up of a thick mesh of plastic fibers that trap disease-causing organisms, either on the inside for the person who is sick and does not want to release this to the environment, or on the outside and comes in 2 forms: the N95 respirators and the surgical masks. They are disposed after each single use. On the other hand, the cloth or fabric mask can be either purchased or simply made at home. These masks are affordable, washable, can be ironed and reused, therefore environmentally friendly. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek for a statement from the Chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Health. In her statement, the Chairperson should inform the House on the following. 1. Which type of mask has the government recommended for use by members of public? 2. How many institutions and companies have been approved by the government to make masks for use in the country, both cloth and N95 masks? What is the production capacity for both types of masks, and are they able to meet the current demand? 3. What is the recommended retail price for a single mask for each type, both cloth and N95? Lastly, Mr. Speaker, what measures has the national government put in place to ensure that quality, effective masks are affordable and accessible by all members of the public. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair, Health. How long do you think you need to get to make that statement?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, by the fact that the government is ready, I would request in the next sitting I can be able to table the answers raised by the member.
The next sitting?
Yes.
Which is
Not next week,
next week?
Wednesday? Yes.
Wednesday?
Yes.
Very well. But I also want to just submit my observation. I want to encourage the member for Makueni to now, during these sittings, to try and, I know you have difficulty sitting permanently. Now you are picking bottles of water from all of, I've just seen you, please. You are advised to pick a bottle of water at the entrance there. This thing of you jumping from here, picking, what's wrong? Honorable Manzo, please. Honorable Kago.
Honorable Speaker, I was feeling that next week, the chairperson has not told this House which day.
She has.
Wednesday next week. Thank you. It is the urgency of this issue, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Maybe you'll be able to hear something beyond this, as to why maybe she is like right to talk about Wednesday. Yes, Leader Majority.
Speaker, you have given guidelines, and I think the guidelines must be followed. I'm sure you have told Honorable Manzo, if you read the guidelines, then movements is not allowed. So, Speaker, I am seeing so many empty seats.
Yeah.
And members have confirmed, and this is not good. For these members who confirmed should be known, and I think, Mr. Speaker, I'll ask your discretion to allow other members who are somewhere and who really want to participate to take those seats. And I think in future, if you confirm that you want to be here, then you must be here. I mean, you cannot reserve a seat. It's only a seat where you can reserve and you don't come is your home. This is the chamber. So, Mr. Speaker, I think it's 30 minutes. It is 40 minutes now, and if they have not come, I think you need to ask members who are either at the launch or outside who want to participate in the debate to come in.
I want the Sergeant at Arms to just take note of those who have not come in the next 5 minutes so that decision can be made. The member whose hand is up, that is who now? That Honorable Pukose? You're in a very unique...
I'm seated in a very unusual position. Honorable Speaker, my point of order is in terms of putting on of the mask. When you see the majority leader is now pushing it back, and also the majority whip who is also pushing it back, the mask is supposed to cover both the nostrils and the mouth. It is not just to cover the mouth alone. So I think proper putting on of the mask is very important for us to be able to control. It's not just for pleasure. It is for a serious business as we are in this House. And the way you've put it on, Mr. Speaker, is properly put. Thank you.
Now there's somebody else who has raised their hand up. I thought you... No, I can see... I'm able to see the names from my screen. Is that the Honorable Nyamai?
Yes.
Also seated in a very unusual corner.
Yes.
Honorable Nyamai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, my point of order is in relation to what the Honorable Duale has said, the Leader of Majority. As you can see, there are many positions that are not occupied, and it is a serious concern, Honorable Speaker, that it is important that members who are seated out here are given an opportunity to sit in these positions that are not taken. So I just rose my hand. I'm sorry, it's because my card seems not to be working. But the reason is it is extremely important to have members in this House so that we can speak, instead of having seats that are vacant by members of Parliament who confirmed that they'll be in the House and they are not here. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Now, how is it now everybody wants to contribute to this, including the Honorable Junet?
Mr. Speaker, I have an issue that I want to raise with you. Mr. Speaker, the guidelines that you issued were very clear. And it's some of the best guidelines I've ever read for the safety and security of this House and members of this House. Mr. Speaker, one of your guidelines was anybody above 58 years should not appear in the chambers. And I'm seeing here Honorable Kimunya. I am seeing here Honorable Bokose. These are octogenarians who should be at home, Mr. Speaker. We don't want to lose any member of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we love. Another one is the MP from Meru, Honorable Kubai. Kubai retired from civil servants before we were born. And he's here, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we love each other, Mr. Speaker. And I am doing it out of good faith, in good heart, Mr. Speaker. I want us to be here after Corona, Mr. Speaker. So when you are told you are above 58 or 60, stay with your grandchildren. Don't have evidence, because date of birth is written in the website of members of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, that guideline is not being followed. Mr. Speaker, could you allow these people to go back to their homes and stay with their grandchildren, Mr. Speaker, at this point in time?
No, now, honourable members, we needed to do business. We needed to do business. Now you see the danger of mentioning somebody, Honorable Junet, is that the Honorable Iringo wants to say something. Yes, because you've been mentioned.
Mr. Speaker, I want to bring to the attention of the honourable member, Mr. Speaker, even in your guidelines, Mr. Speaker, it was clearly said that may, not must. So you are encouraged, but you are not stopped. And I am here because I represent the great people of Wegembe Central, and in my capacity, and I know I'm elderly enough, and I have no problem. Therefore, if you have your problems, that is your problem. So age is a number. There are those who are 25 or 13, and they are suffering. And there are those who are 70, but they are walking tall. So, Junet, Mr. Speaker, I find that his allegations were not out of place and malicious. And let's go to business, and let's not go to side issues. That's why we're in this chamber, and we sacrifice to come here to do the business so that we can go across, especially what the business which the majority leaders already put on the floor. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Please, I think this one will deal with really. I'm sure the Honorable Iringo got it right. Now this one, honourable members, I'm sure as you know, there has been reconfiguration of the chamber. And with the masks, I'm not able to identify even some very familiar faces. So now, the member there. Who is this? Oh, the member for Suna West. Masara. Yes, Honorable Masara. Yes. Just hold on. You also called Francis.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for calling me the right name. Mr. Speaker, my point of order is related to what the majority leader has just talked about social distancing. As much as we appreciate the precaution the House leadership is taking to take care of the members, but I'm wondering why this one in National Assembly is too much. Look at all of this row. It should be 1.5.
Now I'll force you to sit down. This has been done on strict advice by the public health personnel who have been here trying to check on so many other issues. In fact, I may wish to just tell you in advance, the advice is when we use the chamber, one day you must allow another 4 days for it to be infected. So we are following that for the benefit of members and their health. It is not because it's a luxury. So, Honorable Masara, I'm sure you may wish to have somebody seated next to you. You may be feeling cold. But please, just bear with us. It is not out of fun. If you look, you can see, because there's some element of social distancing, some of which has to do with not direct, you know. So you could put somebody down here, but you'll be so close to Honorable Lodepe here. So, and you can see there's quite some distancing that has been done. Strictly on the advice, Honorable Masara. Please. Don't, I'm sure you may be feeling cold, but I'm sure sooner than later you will be feeling warm. Yes, there was the issue of Honorable Debe. You still don't want us to do business.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, mine is just a concern. We are wearing different types of masks, and I wonder, Honorable Speaker, if all of them are being approved by the medical fraternity, or we are just putting in. Kindly, if you can advise on the type of mask we should put on, the better. Thank you, Speaker.
Now you see, you are assuming that I am an expert in that field. Honourable members, I may wish to make this announcement. The empty seats are seat number 60, which was booked by the Honourable Dhuku Kwea, member for Kinangop, I believe. The other one is seat number 61, which was booked by the Honorable Leonard Yegon. And the other one is seat number 10, which was booked by the Honorable Didymus Wekesa Barasa Mutua, member for Kimilili. Now that those three members are not in, I allow, no, it's more than 44, almost 47 minutes since we started. I'll allow the Sergeant at Arms to allow three members. The first one to go to 60, seat number 60, where is that? Here. It's here. Seat number 60 is here. And those three members now they will be advised to stay in the other holding areas. Then there is 61. Member for Nyali, seat number 60 here. That you are walking very, very close to the Honorable Odepe. And the member who is making his way in without a member for Mvita. You take which one? Number 10? But there are 3 seats there. There are 2. Number 10. Then another member to take the other one up there. But I can see some other empty seat there. Yes. Yes, Leader Major. That's the Honorable Rueda Obo, the member for Lamu County. You some of them you know by their height. Honorable Duale, what?
And Mr. Speaker, even those of us who live with people who wear such a dress, we can tell who they are. But Mr. Speaker, I want you to rule on this matter. Mr. Speaker, this is a serious matter. The President and the country, the National Security Council, created a lockdown for 3 counties: Nairobi, Mombasa, Kwale, and Kilifi, notwithstanding the caliber and the status of the person. Speaker, we cannot lock the people of Mombasa not to come to Nairobi or vice versa and allow members of parliament to come from either Kilifi or Mombasa or Kwale, Mr. Speaker. And I have nothing against it. Speaker, unless, Mr. Speaker, they can confirm to us, and Honorable Baya, relax. Unless they can confirm, Mr. Speaker, to you that during the lockdown, since then, they were in Nairobi. But Mr. Speaker, if they have just come from the Honorable Member for Nyali, the Honorable Member for Kilifi North, the Honorable Member for Mvita, and others, if they have just left Mombasa or Kilifi or Kwale, Mr. Speaker, this is a house that makes laws. That is why we have just tabled all the regulations from the National Security Council, even concerning the curfew. Speaker, we need your guidance. That we are not different from the rest of other Kenyans who live in Mombasa. So, Mr. Speaker, give us direction whether Honorable Abdul Samad, member from Vita, Honorable Muhammad Ali of Nyali and the rest, to confirm to you, because right now we have issues of age. Now in fact, we are going to another dangerous scenario. We are violating the law. You saw the president of South Africa suspending a minister who violated the lockdown. Speaker, we can't allow members of parliament to violate that. So, Mr. Speaker, as we start business, I think for those of us who want to follow the law and who want to make sure that there's safety and there's health, I'm not saying my colleagues have issues, but you know, it should look tidy and neat. Are they from Mombasa this morning? And if they're from Mombasa this morning, Mr. Speaker, I'll be the first person to walk out and go home. No, I have said here, Garissa is not lockdown. Garissa.
No, honor members, the advice from the Public Health Department, Directorate, is to encourage as many members and staff to go even for voluntary testing. And if you test positive, not just proper positive, then you go into isolation. It's only in those circumstances that you will not be allowed here. Now, of course, we know that there are members from those other 3 counties that have been locked down. The counties of Mombasa, Kilifi, and Kwale. But I don't want to provide any information that I may have, because I know some of them have been very robust in communicating and including posting their results. I know, at least I know, I've been following. And many of them don't sleep early. That's one thing I've learned in the last few weeks. Not least the Honorable Kaluma and several others who they have something they call a night shift team. But I'm very happy and very proud of the work that they have been doing, because I believe once we start business, the House will be and the country will be richer by some of the issues that they have been able to raise, because I believe they will be able to share with all of us. Now, I think I don't want to begin asking every member. We have not even started the business. And remember, there are some of your colleagues also who are out there in the other holding rooms, and they also have a right to come and contribute to any of the issues that are being debated. So please, I would really want to plead with all of us that if we could, because I know now everybody starts, if we start now requiring everybody to start producing their medical certificates, then we may have to first of all adjourn to go to the gate and ask people. And I think it may not be. I'm assuming, my assumption is that the members are fully aware of those that advice from the Directorate of Public Health. I want to believe that. I don't want to say which of the members, but I know many of them have been posting their negative results from very authoritative sources. And I think they were doing it for free, not on their own, out of their own volitions. They were not compelled, and I think maybe they may not require anybody to begin doing it publicly. But I think the important thing is that we are all advised that that is the way we should operate, given these prevailing circumstances. So if I don't ask member for Nyali, I can see you are member for Kilifi North, member for Vita. So many of you. Now, if we allow each one of you to address that issue, you may start asking whether the Honorable Chris Wamalo also has a certificate. So, and I think then we will be in a very difficult. Maybe we'll have to go to the ministry to get all of us certified, isn't it? Because then we'll have no reason to believe that anyone is not positive. We'll have no reason to believe that another person has not tested positive. Let's not be suspicious. Let us encourage one another. Indeed, including the Honorable Pukose. Yeah? There's nothing wrong with the Honorable Pukose attending the sitting. In fact, I know several other members who have requested me that they would want to come and give their contribution. But unfortunately, we have to limit the numbers to the ones that we have now. So can we do business? Yes. Next order. Please, Honorable Ali.
Order number 8, procedural motion, approval of a second sitting.
Leader majority.
So, Mr. Speaker, next sitting, I think we need to move Honorable Pukose to a closer position. He does some specific duties. That's the only request we ask him. But Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that pursuant to the provision of the Standing Order 30, subsection 3B, this House resolves to hold another sitting today, Tuesday, April 14, 2020, after the 2:30 p.m. sitting. Speaker, the House Business Committee, in which you chair, in its meeting earlier today, resolved that the House have this important sitting. The purpose of this second sitting is to limit the number of sittings per week of the House considering the COVID-19 pandemic worldwide. This sitting will enable the House to conclude crucial business before the House as is appearing on the order paper today and thereafter adjourn till next week. Mr. Speaker, we have agreed under your leadership this morning that we deal with the matter today so that next week, Wednesday, we have a full day from morning, and every week we meet once until we are sure that the safety of and the health of our members is okay. And the Speaker, you have seen the kind of work that is before us, legislation, from what the delegated legislation is doing, what the Finance Committee has been subjected to in the tax laws, and I'm sure within the course of today, the Minister for Finance will send the supplementary estimates. And Mr. Speaker, that's why somebody somewhere said Parliament is dead. So I asked him, you can only say your house is dead. And I asked him to watch this afternoon, and I hope he's watching from wherever he is. Because based on what we have today, it tells you that all that the President said can only be implemented by this House. So, in fact, it is now that Kenyans are seeing between the two houses which one is dead, which one is upper, which one is lower. So, Mr. Speaker, people met the other week, they just said nothing. So, I really want to ask the Chair of Health to give us updates every week. I hope the Chair of Finance, if he's here, Honorable Limo, and his committee, they have to deal with the tax laws. I'm sure Honorable Ichungwa, Honorable Mbandi, Honorable Makali are waiting for the supplementary estimates. I'm sure our colleagues in the delegated legislation led by Senior Counsel, Honorable Shamala, Honorable Sholei, and the rest are doing good work, and I've tabled more. So I think we have agreed that today we have two sittings, so that we deal with what we have before 4 o'clock, and then we go for merely 10 minutes or 5 minutes, because there's no place where you go and take tea. So you can drink your water. We come back after 5 minutes, 10 minutes. We go to the second sitting, and we finish and come back next week. If the alteration of the calendar will come in the second sitting, which if we approve, then we have time to deal with, and many, many other matters. The matter of Teacher Service Commission, the matter of the CDF committees. Please let us not leave so that we finish all those, the second reading of the tax laws. So, Mr. Speaker, that's why we have two sittings. I'll ask the Honorable John Bandi, who is a member of the committee and was in the meeting, to second.
Honorable Bandi.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. As I second this motion, I just want to say the following. Number one, that, Mr. Speaker, our interest is full, and I want to put it clear that we have to deal with the case of the nominees to the Teacher Service Commission, and that we can only be able to deal with if we have another sitting this afternoon. And, Mr. Speaker, you did say in your earlier communication that it has been advised by public health that if we sit, then we need to take another 4 days to have a sitting. And therefore, we are not able to sit tomorrow to deal with some urgent issues. And in that case, therefore, we request that this House allows another sitting this evening so that we can be able to deal with these matters. More particularly, if this House will not allow the second reading, and I hope the House can allow the second reading of tax laws in this sitting. But if we fail to do so, then we can have it debated in the second sitting. So, Mr. Speaker, I just want to appeal to honorable members to allow that we have another sitting this afternoon. I second.
Yeah, honorable members, it is not everybody who understands some of these processes, and so sometimes people wonder why a second sitting. But I think the Honorable John Bandi has done justice to it, and indeed that's why there were notices of motion which were given, because those motions are now to be debated in the second sitting and cannot have been done in this sitting. So now, members, I propose the question that pursuant to the provision standing on number 30, subsection 3, paragraph B, this House resolves to hold another sitting today, Tuesday, April 14, 2020, after the 2:30 sitting. I put the question? Members, I put the question that pursuant to the provision standing on number 30, subsection 3, paragraph B, this House resolves to hold another sitting today, Tuesday, April 14, 2020, after the 2:30 sitting. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Next.
Order number 9, the Small Claims Court Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 4 of 2020, first reading. A bill for an act of Parliament to amend the Small Claims Court Act. Order number 10, the Kenya National Library Service Bill, National Assembly Bill number 5 of 2020, first reading. A bill for an act of Parliament to establish the Kenya National Library Service to provide for the management of the Kenya National Library Service and for connected purposes. Order number 11, the Kenya National Blood Transfusion Service Bill, National Assembly Bill number 6 of 2020, first reading. A bill for an act of Parliament to establish the Kenya National Blood Transfusion Service to provide for the regulation of the activities relating to the blood donation, testing, processing, safeguarding, transfusion, quality control, and for connected purposes. Order number 12, the Land Registration Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 7 of 2020, first reading. A bill for an act of Parliament to amend the Land Registration Act. Order number 13, the Tax Laws Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 8 of 2020. A bill for an act of Parliament to make various amendments to statutes relating to taxation. Order number 14, motion, consideration of the value-added tax amendment of rate of tax order 2020.
The Chairperson, Committee on Delegated Legislation. Honorable Muruga, yes? Proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this House does adopt the report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the value-added tax, amendment of the rate of tax, Order 2020, laid on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 14th April 2020, and pursuant to the provisions of Sections 6 and 67 of the Value-Added Tax 2013, approves the Value-Added Tax amendment of rate of tax Order 2020, published as legal notice number 35 of 26th March 2020. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is an extraordinary situation we find ourselves in. The human race is under attack from a virus that is unrelenting and has claimed approximately over 120,000 lives globally. As at today, the corona cases worldwide stand at about 1.9 million, and locally, as at yesterday, we had confirmed cases of about 208, in which we also suffered 9 deaths so far. The numbers are on a daily rise. Arising out of this situation, the government of Kenya has put in place various measures to contain the spread, effect, and impact of COVID-19 pandemic in the country. One of the interventions which is of help to the citizens is to reduce the value-added tax from 16% to 14%. The order was issued following a directive by the President on the 25th of March 2020 to the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Treasury to invoke powers under the value-added tax to reduce the rate of tax, the rate of value-added tax on imported goods and services to ease the tax burden on the public and as relief on the possible individual citizens' economic hardships that may be occasioned by this attack by the virus. The value-added tax amendment of the rate of tax Order 2020 in exercise of the powers conferred by Section 6.1 of the value-added tax, the Cabinet Secretary actually produced the order, and this was actually gazetted on the 26th of March 2020. The order seeks to amend paragraph B of section 5.2 of the value-added tax by reducing the tax payable on goods and services from 16% to 14%. Having been seized of the instrument, the Committee on Delegated Legislation examined the instrument against the Constitution, the Interpretation and General Provisions Act, Chapter 2 of the Laws of Kenya, the Value Added Tax 2013, and the Statutory Instruments Act 2013 to confirm whether the instrument was compliant. And the observations of the committee were as follows. The timelines were found to be in order, as it was gazetted on the 26th of March 2020 and was submitted to the clerk on the 1st of April 2020. As regards commencement of the order came into force on the 1st of April 2020 in accordance with paragraph 3 thereof and remains in force subject to an approval or disapproval by the National Assembly or upon lapse of the order as stipulated therein. Consultation of public participation. The committee, it was demonstrated to the committee that there was no public participation, and the reasons for this were actually given in the memorandum. The memorandum is an explanatory one attached to the instrument. Due to the nature of the law before the House, the time frame and the circumstances, the committee was persuaded that actually it was not necessary to have the public participation. Having been satisfied that the statutory instrument, that is the order, is in compliance with the Constitution, the Interpretation and General Provisions Act, the Value Added Tax, and the Statutory Instruments Act, this committee recommends to this House that the instrument actually be approved. Mr. Speaker, sir, as I conclude, allow me to point out certain issues regarding this law, which first and foremost is to the benefit of the citizens. Tax is a burden to everyone, and any proposal to reduce the same is always a positive one. And this is one reason that we said it was not necessary to hold the public participation. Number two, it's important we commend the government that a lot has been put into place to ensure that we fight this pandemic, including provision of masks, sanitizers and gloves, and also ensuring that our medical team out there is well catered for. It is also important to thank the members of Parliament for finding time to sit at this extraordinary time to approve this law, which is to the benefit of our people. Kenyans are looking upon us to see how, as a House, we actually participate in fighting, in combating this pandemic. Therefore, thank you very much, members of Parliament, for availing yourselves to come and make this approval. I also thank the committee because they've done a diligent job, very fast. They actually sat when it had been said that the House was under attack by the virus. That didn't matter to them. They came, sat, deliberated, and approved these regulations. With those remarks, thank you very much, and I now call upon the Honourable Member representing special interests, including cases such as this one, the Honourable Jennifer Shamala, to second. I beg to move.
Very well. Honourable Shamala.
Honourable Speaker, I rise to support the motion for adoption of the report by the Committee on Delegated Legislation. As rightfully said and stated, the committee has a lot on its hands. But this is not the only committee that has a lot on its hands in these challenging and extraordinary circumstances and time. Indeed, all the committees of the National Assembly have a lot on their time. And at this point, in this juncture, I do want to state that it is unfortunate that out there a narrative is being shaped that we are doing nothing as parliamentarians. Perhaps the media can assist us in civic education and explain to the people of Kenya that actually the committees are the engines of Parliament. Everything is done at the committees, whether they're petitions, they're regulations, legislative proposals, etc. That work is done in the committees, and then it is brought to what we call a plenary. So it is unfair to state that we are doing absolutely nothing. Going back to these regulations, Mr. Speaker, I wish to state that indeed, under very unusual and extraordinary circumstances, we request that this report be adopted. Even in spite of the fact and being persuaded that the regulatory authority did not submit the process to public participation, it was Parliament, yet again, through the clerk of the National Assembly, in order to satisfy this requirement, put an advert in the newspapers, in the local dailies, inviting interested members of public to submit written memoranda regarding the order. And by close of business on Monday, 6th April, the Office of the Clerk had not received any memoranda related to this particular regulation. Having stated that, Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to finally state that in whatever we do as the National Assembly, we must uphold the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya. We must uphold our laws, and as difficult as it is, let us not get carried away in trying to do things that we may be outside of the law. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support. To second, I beg your pardon. To second.
Very well. Honourable members, I propose the question. It is that this House adopts a report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the value-added tax in brackets amendment of the rate of tax order 2020, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, April 14, 2020, and pursuant to provisions of Section 6 and 67 of the value-added tax of 2013, approves the value-added tax amendments of the rates of tax order 2020, published as legal notice number 9. Is it 35? Number 35 of 26th of March 2020. And now, members, I wish to give some direction. I've already received indication from 3 members who are in some of the holding areas out there who desire also to participate. But I'll get one member here. Do I see the Honorable John Bandi desirous? Yes, and then after that, get another member out there, because we are all colleagues. It's only fair that we also hear what they may have to say about this particular motion. Indeed, after the contribution by the Honorable John Bandi, the next member is the Honorable Nguna. So he can be informed so that he can be somewhere standing with the Sergeant at Arms, ready to come and contribute from there. Very well, Honorable John Bandi.
I was being interviewed by one of the media houses. And from that interview, I realized that many people who we expect.
Keeping quiet when there is nakedness in the palace. Mr. Speaker, support for the national government is giving them proper advice and saying that I don't agree with this, but this is what because we are elected, all of us. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, for those maybe who have come for their first term, or maybe have not been in any echelon of leadership within a political party, the more you parrot and praise, the less relevant and less seriously you're taken. I assure you, I have seen it. And I want to say that I know the President himself, when we come to the issue of Nairobi, His Excellency the President had the best intentions and still remains to have the best intentions for service delivery. Unfortunately, within government sometimes, there are those who are more zealous than the top leadership. And you give them an inch, they want to take a mile. Mr. Speaker, it is completely unconstitutional to try and appropriate for any county. In fact, if you read the deed of transfer, and Senator Orengo has alluded to it because we spoke about it at length during that time, it says that Nairobi County shall ensure that those functions are resourced and the money appropriated shall not be less than the amount appropriated in the last appropriation subsequent to the current appropriation. Thereafter, Mr. Speaker, we even had discussions with the control of budget as to how, once the appropriation is done in the county assembly, then those specific amounts can then be taken based on the deed of transfer or any other instrument, because the other memoranda of service level agreements on health, on transport, or on all of the transferred functions, then that money is then sent to that entity that is supposed to play those roles. So, Mr. Speaker, I just want to assume, in good faith, that it was an oversight. At worst, at best, that it was an oversight, Mr. Speaker. But we must play a role and we must amend that. Mr. Speaker, Nairobi County should get its full complement based on division of revenue and then based on CARA. And thereafter, the County Assembly of Nairobi, and I want to tell the MCAs, and I have spoken to them repeatedly, that they have not also arrogated their oversight responsibility. That has not been transferred. Mr. Speaker, it says that the constitutional responsibility remains with the county transferring the function, and that constitutional responsibility, apart from appropriation, also includes oversight. So that oversight must be able to go on. So I want to thank the committee. Let me not go into other issues. It is very disheartening, and I think now, Corona has also come as an additional excuse that counties are not getting more money. But of course, even that counties are getting the same amount of money. You cannot have money going up in the national government and then the counties, you keep it as it is. We want to see reductions and this fiscal consolidation that the ministry is saying they're doing on both levels of government. Today we have seen that there are non-essential expenditures that can be reappropriated, and it will be coming in our report, that certain expenditure now needs to be changed from what has previously been appropriated to now focusing on strengthening healthcare system in this country and in our counties. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your time.
Senator Dulo, then Senator Mutula Jr., and Professor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to join my colleagues in congratulating the work of this Committee of Finance, chaired by none other than Senator for Mandera. Mr. Speaker, I think the purpose of Senate in this country and for what we do in this House is to hold counties accountability, to hold them accountable when money is allocated to the counties. And that has been actually our primary responsibility, even though we have, issues between ourselves and the county assembly, where the county assembly normally say we have a responsibility oversight, not the Senate. But I think for the last 7 years that I've been in this House, we have managed to hold our counties accountable in terms of the money allocated to them. Mr. Speaker, there is a lot that is going on in the counties, especially when this COVID has come in. It looks like people are now avoiding procedures in the name of emergency. I wish we have contributed to the statement brought by Senator Kabaka, because that is happening in most of the counties. This morning, I was called by members of staff from my county. Up to date, they have not received their salary. And today is 14th. They have rents to pay. They have food to buy for their families. And you can imagine, I'm being told that the county executive officer has not requisitioned the money from Treasury. Mr. Speaker, I think it's now or never. The institutions that are mandated to oversee and to hold counties accountable, especially EACC and the rest, they should be more alert now than ever before, because this is very serious. I was actually hearing a radio station in my county this morning where people are questioning the governor, where is the money you allocated? 40 million for COVID-19. And he says, wait for Auditor General's report. Don't ask me about this. It's really saddening. Mr. Speaker, secondly, a lot of donors are giving donations. And Ministry of Health is also receiving a lot of money from donors, and even Treasury. And I have raised this matter this morning in the Committee of House Business. This House must be on top of things in terms of what is going to the counties and what is allocated to Treasury to go to the counties. Because most of the counties, and especially my county, let me say this, things are donated from national government. The governor is claiming is the one actually buying those equipments, which is really wrong. Money is allocated by donors for roads, for many other things. There is also allocation from county government. That money does not even help the people on the ground. Mr. Speaker, we cannot relent our effort, but we will continue fighting for this. And I think the Committee of Health should be more active now to make sure that whatever is allocated to the counties is actually accounted for to the last penny. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mtula Jr., then Professor Ongeri.
Thank you, Speaker. I want to take a few minutes. Mr. Speaker, there was a phrase that we used to learn in first term in law school, ignorantia juris non excusant. Ignorance of the law is not an excuse. Sometimes when I see the clauses drafted in some of these bills, it makes me wonder whether there are people who deliberately want us to fight amongst ourselves, because the proposal in the division of revenue to put all the money of Nairobi in the consolidated fund is not only unconstitutional, it's not only illegal, it's marks of bad faith on the part of the people who are attempting to take away the role of the Nairobi County Assembly, the Nairobi governor, in terms of the functions that are left with them. Mr. Speaker, increasingly it looks like the people who are doing some of these things are doing a game that is done in nursery school of pinky, pinky, ponky with the division of revenue and counties. But Mr. Speaker, this has revealed the folly of county governments. The things that are happening in Bungoma, the things that are happening in Machakos are happening in Makueni. Our executive put a budget. When he was called to be asked why he set aside some money, he refused to come. The governor decided he's the one to answer the questions. It's the same folly I've seen in Kisumu, where the governor has appointed himself the health CS. Mr. Speaker, we must continue fighting devolution. I'm not afraid to say that the headlines I saw last week, Mr. Speaker, about members of parliament suffering from COVID, is some of the reasons that are being used by the people who are fighting parliament, so that we don't ask the several questions about the billions of shillings, Mr. Speaker, that are being set aside to fight COVID. People want to spend money the way they want. People want to make gazette notices the way they feel like, so that, Mr. Speaker, sooner or later we become irrelevant. Mr. Speaker, I want to say this as I support this amendment. Mr. Speaker, Senator Orengo is right, and the people who are consoling also Senator Murkomen are right. If he needs to be consoled, he doesn't need to be consoled. Mr. Speaker, this in-law is called Valentin and fit injuria. He put himself in that position. Mr. Speaker, we must continue speaking to devolution. And Mr. Speaker, we cannot continue, even ourselves, associating devolution with governors, because devolution is not about governors. If the governor of Nairobi has some problem, Nairobi doesn't have a problem. The people of Nairobi have no problem. If the governor of Bungoma, Machakos, Makueni have issues, the other people don't have those issues. And Mr. Speaker, in defending what the Committee of Finance has done, Mr. Speaker, is continue saying, although we have agreed that 316.5 is the same amount that as we allocated last year, we want to see a little more emphasis on things that matter, including health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Professor Ongeri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Very few words. First, I support the amendment because there's no way you can circumvent the division of labor, the division of revenue at the national level, and then allocate yourself the 15 billion from Nairobi City Council for your purposes. I was just wondering aloud, Mr. Speaker, we have the coronavirus pandemic at this stage. Where is Nairobi County going to get the money, emergency money, if the entire budget of 15 billion has been allocated to go to the consolidated fund, ipso facto, the national government? Where are they going to get the emergency fund for anything that happens in this city? Is that an equivalent that the city has been taken over? I don't think so. I think there are functions that must be carried out in this city, and therefore we need to look very carefully and say no to that kind of blanket transfer. Let it go through the normal process. After the division of revenue bill, it goes to Kara, and then when the Nairobi County government gets these resources, they can then be able to allocate appropriately through the normal budgeting process for that purposes. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, the coronavirus has also shown a lot of interesting features that we now must start thinking seriously as legislators. One is the question of the leasing of medical equipment. I would have expected that some of this equipment will be able to bolster and be able to create a capacity for intensive care unit and other facilities, which will then be able to cope with any pandemic that we receive in this country. But when you when you do a wider survey, it's quite clear that this money has not gone the right use, and therefore we now need to focus after this pandemic how any equipment that goes to the county governments is being utilized for the wider benefit of Kenyans. Touch wood, this pandemic has not spread to the county level. But it's quite clear that if it did, we'll have a disaster in our hands. Therefore, we'll not be able to handle it in a much more effective manner. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, I would like to see a much more robust approach by the county governments, including my county Kisii government, utilizing some of these resources that are under the conditional grants for health, for roads, for urban support program, for afforestation, and for other areas where we have one headquarter. And I would expect that, for instance, in Kisii County, I would expect that by now, the Kisii town should have been fully completed in various other infrastructure development. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And we keep on sinking money in and out. And I think it's high time that we started looking at the devolution, not only at the county headquarters alone, but also at the other sub-county levels that require some of these resources to grow so that people can feel the effect of devolution. Therefore, those few remarks I support.
Senator Harugura, then Cheriot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to support this bill with the amendments made by the Chair of the Finance Committee because of reasons which already have been elucidated by my colleagues. I would not like to repeat. Also, I would like to take into account the information given by Senator Orengo on the status of the Metropolitans Committee, such that it's being said is not a properly national government function, so there will be no need to transfer the money back to the national government. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of the equitable share, last year we passed after a lot of struggle, but I'd like to report that even by now, most of the monies have been channeled again to pay debts, now the issue of corona or COVID-19. So development has not been achieved at the county level because of this kind of unnecessary, maybe supplementaries. We need to also look at what is going on in the counties. On the conditional grants, we don't have a say on how they are actually shared. When they go to the county government, the county assemblies pass it the same way. So there is no clearly a framework of oversighting these funds. And even in some cases, I'd like to look at the road maintenance levy fund. That fund, normally it's shared, like when it goes to the rural roads authority, it's shared equally among the constituencies. Now, when it goes to the counties, there's not that kind of share. The governor has a say on where it goes. We need to check with Kenya Roads Board because they are the ones who are oversighting that money. Do they give them instruction that even at that level you should share it equally among the constituencies within the county so that there are roads to be maintained everywhere? Then on the issue of some of these conditional grants like the drought resilience programs in northern Kenya, there is a lot of bureaucracy between the Treasury, the AG. Up to now, I know my county has not utilized what they have been given. It was just the other day the AG was signing an instrument for that to be utilized, and it's the end of the financial year. So we also need to have mechanism of checking these monies. Are they actually assisting our people, or they're just being misappropriated along the way, or they're just being returned because they are not being utilized, the infrastructure is not there. Lastly, on the issue of equalization fund, I think this is now the 10th year. And the equalization fund had a time period of 20 years. We have already lost 10 years, and that money has not been used. So where is that money? Is it being kept anywhere? Or it's being misappropriated the way now we have everything going to Corona? The other day I was even hearing, I don't know whether I had the president right, that he was instructing the CS Treasury to even appropriate the monies for the counties made for transport. I think the CS Treasury has no authority to go into the counties' budgets. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Cheriot, then Wambua. I'm trying to give those who have not spoken at all. Then Kajwang.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll try and be extremely brief because I'm a member of this committee and I've had my opportunity to give my thoughts to this particular bill in the committee. Mr. Speaker, I have only two quick issues that I wish to bring to the attention of the House. One is on the issue of conditional grants that year on year continue to increase. If you look at the trend on the conditional grants, Mr. Speaker, is that since when they began in 2015, there have been an increase and to huge amounts at that, Mr. Speaker, on each and every financial year. This is an avenue which, if we do not check as Parliament, Mr. Speaker, we could be handing the backhand to the executive to be able to apportion money to counties that they feel, for one reason or the other, are more deserving than others. All purposes of distribution and sharing of national and raised revenue is a preserve of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. This exercise, or the discretionary power that was handed on conditional grant, continues to be abused, and it is my hope, and we put in this as part of our report, Mr. Speaker, that perhaps this should be the last time where we are allowing the Treasury to give us proposals for conditional grants without giving a formula as to how they arrive at the decision on which amount goes to which county and for what particular reason, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, on the issue of Nairobi, I think many of my colleagues have conversed on the proposals that have been made. And the most important thing, Mr. Speaker, is that as a committee, while reaching this decision, we were guided by regulations that were put by the very people who gave out this proposal. Clause 5.2 of the transition deed insists that county resources shall be maintained and managed by the Nairobi county government. Therefore, I do not understand what this hurry to try and determine even beforehand before we sit as a House to determine how much will go to each county, that you've already set aside 15 billion. It goes on to the discussion, the side debate that is going on of how the executive continues to view this Parliament. I think we can blame each other. We can say, oh, majority leader is responsible. But the most important aspect is you as an individual. How much have you exercised the vote that the people you represent in this House have given to you, and what has been your contribution? I think it's a time that we need to have sober reflection, Mr. Speaker, and not just blame each other for what has been our contribution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wambua, then Kajwang, and then call on the...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I also want to really thank the Finance Committee, led by Senator Mandela, for the bold proposed amendments, especially on DORA and the sharing of the 316.5 billion Kenya shillings to counties. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak to two issues. One, the issue of the deed of transfer of functions from Nairobi County to the national government. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the Senator of Nairobi, and we will support him as colleagues, to say what he has said on this floor many, many more times out there. That, Mr. Speaker, the constitutional responsibility for appropriation and oversight of the functions of the county government of Nairobi City resides within the County Assembly of Nairobi. Because, Mr. Speaker, if we allow that somebody else or another body goes to appropriate, another body comes to oversight, the four functions transferred from the county government of Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, we don't know where this will end. The other day, Mr. Speaker, I saw, and I actually conducted Senator Sakaja, the so-called new boss in the county government of Nairobi, purporting to issue new letters of appointment to staff that have letters of permanent appointment from the county government of Nairobi. Mr. Speaker, we must put a stop to some of these maneuvers. Second, Mr. Speaker, because of time, on the issue of monies allocated to the managed equipment service for hospitals. Mr. Speaker, this is a matter that is under very active and serious investigation by this House. Mr. Speaker, one of the components that money was supposed to fund was equipment of ICU across this country. But when you look at the number of ICU beds that we have in this country, it's appalling, Mr. Speaker. In fact, we have so many level 5 hospitals in this country without a single ICU bed.
Welcome to the National Emergency Response Committee on Coronavirus, an update of coronavirus in the country and response measures as at 14th April 2020. Dear Kenyans, today we are beginning a crucial phase in our battle against COVID-19 pandemic. In the last 1 month, we have bared our fights in this, but the numbers have kept rising. We have appraised you constantly on our figures and advised you that it would be much wiser to prepare for the worst. Despite the measures we have put in place, we are already witnessing a phenomenon where the virus of a republic from down south in Kilifi to Mandera in the north, from the west in Vihiga to Kitui in the east. Fellow Kenyans, we have been able to disaggregate the number of cases by county, and this is information I will be sharing with you. And just as an example, we have about 101 cases in Nairobi, 34 in Mombasa, 10 in Kilifi, 6 in Mandera, 7 in Kiambu, 5 in Nakuru, 1 in Kisii, 2 in Kitui, 2 in Laikipia, 2 in Kajiado, 2 in Murang'a, 1 in Homa Bay, 2 in Kakamega, 1 in Nyamira, 2 in Nyandarua, 1 in Nyeri, 2 in Siaya, 2 in Uasin Gishu, 1 in Vihiga, 1 in Kwale. And fellow Kenyans, for further elaboration, it's important to note, once we pick these cases, it's one of two scenarios. We have situations where these cases are tested in the counties, and we have situations where some of these members who are tested are residents of different counties. The reason why we're extrapolating for you the cases by county is to be able to demonstrate to you Kenyans that some of our positive cases are actually Kenyans who've had interaction with different members of the public across the country. Therefore, fellow Kenyans, what this means is that we must work even more closely with our county government to tighten our control measures, to harmonize our responses, and mobilize our people to take an active role in this fight. In this regard, we are rolling out mass testing exercise, taking into consideration the risk profiles of clusters. And as an example, fellow Kenyans, in Nairobi, for instance, we shall prioritize the quarantine centers, hotels, isolation facilities, and hospitals. These form our top 4 priority in Nairobi. We have also identified different cluster areas, and in the coming week, we shall be able to share with you where these cluster areas are within Nairobi County and in the different counties. As an example, Kibera has been identified, and we shall also have prioritized testing in that cluster. In Mombasa, we are deploying 1,000 testing kits to Kenya Ports Authority, KPA, and this is based on the risk of transmission that has been identified from our monitoring teams. And the same will happen in Mandera and Siaya counties. In total, the first phase of mass testing will see approximately 12,000 testing kits deployed to target areas in the next few days. Fellow Kenyans, cognizant of the measures we have taken in the fight of this disease, we are now witnessing a spike in domestic violence, gender-based violence, and sexual offenses. Fellow Kenyans, I have witnessed within the area that I live in, within this Easter weekend, I actually had neighbors coming to my house to report a case of domestic violence. There's a lady who was severely beaten, and really as a Ministry of Health, what we are saying is now is not the time to engage in disputes and to bend about in terms of conferring domestic violence to our partners. We are also in constant communication with the Gender Violence Recovery Center, that's the GVRC, as well as the National Council on Administration of Justice. And both these two organizations have told us that there's an increase both in the numbers of gender-based violence and also sexual violence. And most of the times it's been noticed that this violence is perpetrated by close relatives and guardians. And therefore, fellow Kenyans, even as we address this between the various government departments, we are calling on Kenyans to focus on fighting the virus and to handle the disputes within the laid down civil structures and devoid of any violence. And we also want to remind everyone that the law has not been suspended and that it will catch up with those who commit violence on others during this period. Fellow Kenyans, we know that we have been asking you to maintain social distance in your interactions. However, it's important for us as a Ministry of Health to articulate that this does not mean you forget the social fabric that binds us together as Kenyans. We do request you to continue communicating with each other, to continue offering each other mental support during this time that we are at war with this virus. With the aid of technology and our social lives should indeed continue and in fact even blossom during this period. Let us keep engaging each other through the available platforms. Let us counsel each other. Be your brother's keeper, fellow Kenyans. Learn and kindly, help us in this fight by standing together with your families, with your communities, with your partners, with your loved ones, and even with your neighbors. To those who are abusing measures that we have put in place, for example, we had reports during the Easter season of house parties in different parts of the country. We shall catch up with you, and we shall be able to meet the law and ensure that you are punished for going against the different interventions and instructions that we have issued. In the last 24 hours, fellow Kenyans, we have tested 694 samples. Out of these samples, 8 have tested positive for coronavirus disease, bringing the total number of confirmed cases in the country to 216. 5 are Kenyans, and the other 3 are of different nationalities, foreign nationalities. 6 have a history of travel from Dubai, the UK, Pakistan, Zambia, and Comoros. The spread of the new cases with regards to their counties of residence is as follows. Nairobi, 6, Siaya, 1, Nakuru, 1. And in terms of age distribution, the pattern continues, and we're seeing that this disease, fellow Kenyans, is actually affecting the productive members of our society. As it stands today, we have about 5 patients who fall within the age group of 0 to 14. We have 15 to 19 falling to 58 in terms of count. And we have about 64% of our cases falling between the age group of 30 to 59, again affecting the productive members of this society. Now, 6 of the cases that we are announcing today have emanated from our mandatory quarantine centers, while 2 were picked by our surveillance teams. Over this same period, Kenyans, 1 more person has been discharged from hospital, bringing the total number of recoveries to 41. A total of 2,331 contacts have been monitored, out of which 1,729 have been discharged. 602 contacts are now being followed up at the moment. I thank you.
They were at the EPZ just monitoring how the production of the face masks are actually is ongoing. How efficient are the face masks from the EPZ in Kenya? And then another issue pertains to maybe the person living with a disability, those are not the deaf people. How are they supposed to embrace the face masks? Because I can even see your sign interpreter doesn't have the face masks.
I'm Vera Okeo from Nation Media Group. I would like to ask, yesterday I asked about contact tracing. I know it's going to be a very critical part of this. I would like to know whether you have enough people, and if there are enough, what's their specialty? Are they nurses? Are they public health officers? And if they are not enough, what are you going to do to try to increase them? Thank you.
My name is Purity from KBC. My first question is on the gender-based violence. Probably, do we have, what are the numbers, like the statistics of people, and of course you can tell us in terms of gender, who have been most affected, male or female, the age bracket, then we will appreciate, especially on the numbers. Number 2, we already have 41 recoveries, but when we have a look at what is happening in other nations, we've seen cases, especially in Japan and other countries, of people who've recovered, but they have been reinfected by this virus. Probably, do we have a follow-up program for people who are being discharged from hospitals?
About contact tracing. We have seen there are some young people who are coming up with innovations and applications which can help in contact tracing. Are there plans maybe to work with them in that front?
Great. Thank you for all these questions. Let me begin by the question concerning officials who went to EPZ. Indeed, I can confirm that is correct. We have a very agile and diligent team within the ministry. It was led by the DG. And today they were able to go and talk to our different partners at the EPZ. They were there on a mission of inspecting the different materials, the different PPEs, and ensuring that they will be of the right standards and qualities so they're able to protect our healthcare workers. This is an ongoing process, and like we earlier announced and informed Kenyans, we are taking all measures to ensure critical scrutiny is undertaken for all the PPEs that will be manufactured within the country and that will be availed for our healthcare workers. Concerning the question of deaf people and their use of the mask, indeed, the Ministry of Health has rolled out a mass masking policy, and this is a question that we've integrated severally. I think WHO has also released guidelines that actually advocate for mass masking. However, what we are saying, if you're a member who may not be able to utilize a mask, then it is important, therefore, that you pay 100% effort and energy into all the other non-pharmaceutical interventions against COVID. And this includes the social distancing, this includes hand washing. It is important, Kenyans, that you remember, despite you using a mask, remember your eyes are still not covered. And your eyes have a mucous membrane, meaning you can still get coronavirus. And so the mask is just one but of the many measures that will actually help us. With regard to contact tracing, Vera, indeed, if you've seen and learned from different country experiences, especially some of the notable ones being South Korea, contact tracing is extremely crucial in the fight of coronavirus. And there are different ways in which this is being conducted. In Kenya, we have a heavy able team working in the Emergency Operations Center. We've been able to deploy what we call our field epidemiology registrars. These are field-type residents who have been undergoing a master's training for 2 years, and we have them supporting the contact tracing mechanisms. And we've taken this further and employed different IT technologies. We have applications, and perhaps in the coming week we'll be able to share that with you Kenyans in terms of how we are utilizing IT to be able to do, indeed, a lot of rigorous contact tracing. It is important also to remind Kenyans, despite all these interventions, despite using IT, despite having a team of masters, pupils sitting and helping us with this, you Kenyans are the ones who will actually help us in contact tracing. Being aware of your movements, observing the measures that we've put in place, you actually become perhaps the biggest aid in contact tracing for us. With regards to gender-based violence, this is an issue that we're actually looking at. Like I said, it was brought to our attention within the past week that we've had an increase in cases. We'll be able to share with you more disaggregated data, but off the cuff, the numbers we have right now, at least from the National Justice Council, is that we have 3 times more cases. They will be sharing with us a disaggregation based on age, based on sex, and we'll be able to inform you Kenyans once we get that data. However, the underlying factor here should be that we can only defeat coronavirus if we band together, if we are our brother's keeper. Remember, if you're meting out violence on different members and these people end up in hospitals, it means that these people may not be able to observe some of the measures that we put in place. Therefore, it means that these people then become perhaps even agents of this coronavirus. So you need to protect each other, band together. Again, I think the last question again was on contact tracing. Indeed, we've been approached by various members of the public. We have different organizations such as Microsoft. We have different groups, different developmental partners such as the WHO, ARMREF, Palladium, USAID, all who have come together with us and who have helped us in designing our application for contact tracing. And like I said, we'll be able to share this with you in the next few days. And I must say it's definitely a technology and a tool that we are utilizing for contact tracing. Regarding the recoveries, indeed, purity. We've seen in different countries that members who are getting afflicted are actually still susceptible to recontracting this virus. There's a team that is doing follow-up. Remember, we still have our 719 number that is active and can be utilized. And remember also, for all our cases, those that we come into contact with, be it through contact tracing, be it through confirmatory testing, we actually have a very robust database that is able to get these members up to where they live within the public. We've activated our different structures. We've activated the Ngao structure, and we're using all these structures to be able to have proper follow-up for all our patients. Let's continue. Thank you.
Next on maumivu ya kichwa chako na dalili nyingine zote zinasababishwa na kuelemewa kwake, ni lazima ufanyiwe upasuaji, lakini eneo la uvimbe wako ni la kipekee, lipo karibu na mshipa. Sasa kutokana na teknolojia ni vigumu sana kufanikiwa kuondoa.
Leo mama alipika chakula kwa ajili ya siku yako ya kuzaliwa.
Jamani, sio vyote vingi vilipikwa na nchi jao. Uko wapi?
Kwa hiyo ina maana umekubali?
Next on